Whether you're home or away, stay connected to your team with T-Mobile, the network that covers 99% of people in America. They've been investing billions to light up their best network ever. From your backyard to a sold-out stadium, get T-Mobile's best coverage yet. Plus, with T-Mobile, you get a price lock guarantee, so they won't raise the rate of your talk, text, and data, ever. There's never been a better time to switch. Visit your local T-Mobile store today. Coverage not available in some areas. Price lock exclusions like taxes, fees, select promos, and third-party services apply. See T-Mobile.com.
Hail Cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. It's the rare afternoon recording for me and you, Brandon. We normally record. It's very dark outside. My windows are shut out. I shut out the city of New York when I record. But right now the sun is shining. I have had a very good game week, as have you. And it's not over yet. It's about as good as listen. I've come on here and complained many times before. I'm trying to ratchet down the complaining.
The people love it though, Josh. The people love it.
I know they do.
Complain.
Complaining is more fun than things going well. I will, the drama is more fun. But I had to have a really good game week and then have the triple captain, the second match of that still to go, and it feels like a free roll. It's a very good feeling. Yeah. I'm not saying that to brag. It's just I enjoy the good moments when they happen in fantasy, because there's lots of crummy game weeks where you're like, why am I even doing this? And you do this because every now and then the stars align and it feels so fun. You feel like you've solved the game for a week, and then next week the game will humble you again. But enjoy the moments when you feel like you've cracked it, when they come. So how are you feeling right now? We just finished watching the Spurs. Somewhat surprising, although I guess when I saw the Man City lineup, I was like, I kind of felt like Spurs should be favored to win this one, right? It's a weird, it's a weird time.
The City lineup is like somebody dumps out some jigsaw puzzle pieces, and you're pretty sure that a couple are missing. You're like, well, yeah, we can put this puzzle together, but it's not going to be at all satisfying. And it does feel like Pep might be self-sabotaging in new and more mysterious ways this season. It's not like he can tank City and get like a higher draft pick or something like that, but he is seemingly trying to make points to players and to journalists and to fans who just aren't listening. They don't like Pep. We don't care. Like if you're making a point and losing doing so.
Right. It's like the Cancelo thing is still so odd to me. This happened. The move happened after we recorded last week's podcast, and he was off to Bayern, I think, like the next day. And I read an interesting article in The Athletic that sort of explained the breakdown, and it was like, okay, no one's bigger than the club, whatever. And I just sort of appreciated Cancelo just being like, I have to play. I cannot live with not playing. Like, there was some part of me that's like, I think I would have been like, if I was a professional or whatever. It's like he went to the World Cup and he came back and he didn't have a spot anymore, and it just drove him insane. And he's gone to Bayern. He's had 2 assists in his first 2 matches with them, and whatever. But like it was just, it kind of feels like that's like a management failure. Like, couldn't you just talk him through this a little bit, or just play him a little more too? It doesn't seem like they're not keeping clean sheets, and they're not attacking especially well. So it feels like, I don't know, even today it was like, man, if they had Cancelo, they could have brought him out at halftime, might have made a difference. I mean, they weren't getting anything from the fullback spots in that match.
You're not going to get along with everybody who you work with, who you work for, who reports to you. And this is not the first time Pep's done this. I mean, famously, Zlatan Ibrahimovic could not get along with Pep, and it wasn't like Zlatan went on to accomplish nothing in his life. So, yeah, you've got to figure, I don't know how I transition from your positive attitude to trying to dismantle the kingdom of Pep Guardiola. But here we are. I think the why I brought it up is because thinking about my team, one of the things that went wrong for me this week, and I am coming off of a good score like you, is Kevin De Bruyne. The Kevin De Bruyne, he's now basically, I've got him in the same little pod as Gabriel Martinelli, and we'll have to discuss what to do with these types of players ahead of the double game week in game week 23. But coming where we are right now in game week 22, both of us played the triple captain on Marcus Rashford. I'm feeling good about good decisions, but also these chip decisions plague us every season. When do I play them? Is it going to work out? Am I going to waste them? Are chips just dumb? And to basically have a simple story that we wanted to tell with the Marcus Rashford triple captaincy, for it to come off as planned and still with one match to go in this game week, it just feels great. And certainly a lot of people listening out there will have hoped for the same thing with Haaland, the previous City double game week, where he only got 8 points, and maybe they're tuning out.
They're the ones who want us to shut up right now. Yeah, exactly.
But trust us when we say we have been on worse ends of that triple captaincy deal.
Nothing will get worse than this is like 4 years ago now, and Sadio Mane. There were three great captain options. This was peak Trent Alexander-Arnold, peak Mo Salah, and peak Sadio Mane, I suppose. And you could kind of go with any of those three for this double game week. They were all great options, and I went with Sadio Mane, who was maybe like a little bit of a differential triple captain pick. I think most people were going with Salah, the logical. Mm-hmm. If I look back at many moments in my FPL career that things didn't go right, it usually involves me not captaining Salah when I should have. And it was like 18 minutes into the first match of this double game week, Sadio Mane, who never gets injured, ever, goes down with some kind of hamstring injury, and he's out. He gets 1 point, and then I think Salah gets like 2 goals and an assist. Trent gets a clean sheet and an assist. Or something. It's basically like they both outscored him by like 20 points in that one big game week. So yeah, we've all been there. So again, when I was talking about this sort of the pod, it's enjoy and really enjoy the moments. I mean, obviously, like
it's funny though. I just want to jump in because it comes back to Pep and him bombing players out of the squad, because my 1 point triple captaincy was with Leroy Sané when he was in this incredible form for City, and then magically in this double game week when I triple cap him is when Pep decides he needs to leave. He also ended up going to Bayern Munich, but it's funny how that works. So you got to take the strikes with the gutters, as Lebowski would say, and here we are coming off of a bit of a strike. And so I'm on 79 points, you're on 80, and we're definitely in contention for the Century Club when we look ahead to the next Manchester United match.
I think so. We both have the same 3 players, which means I can lock in a 1 point victory over you this week, Brandon, which I enjoy. We're not doing the head-to-head this year. We should have set that up. But yeah, we both
says now.
Yes, I say it now. But yeah, so we both have Shaw, Fernandez, and Rashford captain to go for that final match on Wednesday. So yeah, I am just outside the top 10K, and in fact, I on live FPL, when it shows you how many points you are off the top 10K, 18, 37, whatever, it actually says that I'm 0 points off the top 10K. So technically, I think I might be tied with
too many transfers you've made.
700 managers. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to call myself inside the top 10K because I'm technically not, but I'm right on the cusp, which feels good. And you are what, like top 50K now? So you've made a huge
I guess last week I said my sort of recalibrated goal was top 50K. Here I am. Stop the count. I'm finishing here on 49,000. So, as mentioned, with this, with Rashford still to go again, how far can I go? I don't know. So now, it would be silly for me to not target the top 10K. But once you
top 20K,
once you start setting your sights that high, that's when you start to fall. But this is my highest game week rank of the season. I think I topped out at like around 55K in game week 10. So this feels great. That's great. I feel great. I'm on a really good run right now.
Yeah, and then with Wednesday still to go. So I think. I think at least top 20K. I was surprised. I looked at our points, and there was a moment there where we were quite far apart. I think we're only about 32 points separated at this point too. So that's a good indication too of the kind of range of points and how they're distributed throughout the game. Right, 30 points is basically the difference between 50K and 10K right now. So you can kind of map that backwards between 50K to 100K and so on. So all right, well the Pep stuff is just Okay, so we need to talk about it's actually really important because game week 23, yet another double game week, and it's not just any double game week. It's Arsenal and Man City are the two squads that play twice in game week 23. And they're both in a very weird spot right now. You have Martinelli, who's totally out of form and kind of has this usurper in Trossard hanging out there worryingly. And then with Man City, we have just 13 defenders for 4 spots, and KDB out of form, and even Haaland has blanked 3 of his last 5 matches. So there's a lot of interesting things happening right now. So the pod today, we put up the call for questions like we do every week, and so many of the questions were about Man City and Arsenal, and I was trying to figure out how to sort of do this in a way, because there's a lot of context involved here. Who are the best 3 players to own? Well, it kind of depends on what your team structure looks like, right? I mean, I can just say the best 3 players that I think, but what happens if one of them is someone like Nketiah. Well, I'm not bringing Nketiah because I already have Haaland. I have Mitro, who plays Forest at home, and I have Harry Kane, right? So even if I think he's the best option, he doesn't make sense for my own squad. And so the idea for this pod is let's run through all of the players that you could possibly consider for Arsenal and all of the players you could possibly consider for Man City, and just talk a little bit about how we rate them and what we think about them. And I hope by doing that, and sort of depending on what you need as a manager, it will be helpful. And then after that, we got a couple of questions about what, if you still have a triple captain, is it worth going for Haaland in 25? Keeping this blank game week in mind for people who have forgotten or didn't know. In game week 25, so two game weeks from this upcoming one, it's the League Cup final. And because of that, Newcastle, Brighton, Brentford, and Man United will all be off for that weekend. They will not have matches that weekend. So any transfer that you make, you kind of need to keep this in mind, that you look at your squad and make sure that you're not taking out one of the few players you might have who actually plays in 25. This is actually one of the reasons when we talked on last week's pod, I was really seriously looking at Nketiah, and then one of the reasons I didn't was because Mitro plays in 25, and going for another Arsenal midfielder just made things a lot easier for me long term, not having to solve that problem. So anyway, so that's where we are, and I did want to quickly shout out our newest Patreon supporters, Brandon, Anton Titoff, Jeff Merlihan, Sam Driver, and Fadi Zelhoff. So thank you to our newest. These are all just since February kicked off. So thank you, and Brandon, you and I have both been really active in the Discord. I know you've really been enjoying it.
I have, yeah. It was a long-time Slack users. Any platform, when you transition to another, you're just like, well, this is awful. I don't get it. I'm starting to get it, Josh. So I'm starting to feel like a native Discord user. So nice job setting the table there about just sort of like talking through these City and Arsenal assets to figure out which 3 work. And one player who we didn't really talk about at the start of the pod was Bruno Fernandes, who was a big talking point going into the game week 22 deadline. It isn't 22 one of those odd weeks where you sort of ranked the 3 players to have, top one being Rashford, middle one being Bruno, lower one being Luke Shaw, and those were the Manchester United players who came through. That has to be the.
It never happens.
It never happens. But is Manchester United a particular type of squad where you could actually tell that better than, or like how I tend to think about City and Arsenal is these more amoeba-like play styles where they spread the fantasy points around, because you never know who's going to pop up with the goal unless Haaland is doing one of his Haaland things. In Manchester United, you can kind of see the path to the goal a little bit more clearly with them. Yeah. Or would it have not been a surprise to you if it was Casemiro, Martinez, and Anthony, who were the top 3 point getters in 22?
That's a good question. I mean, I suppose before the Casemiro red, right? The goal was scored after the Casemiro red, right? I have that right. Yeah. So before that, I mean, there was a decent chance that a couple of those defenders would have ended up on bonus points in the end. So it could have been close. I mean, even Rashford wasn't. I don't think he was necessarily even a lock for bonus points with the goal and assist before that goal was conceded. So a little bit unlucky, I think, for anyone who doubled up there. I seriously considered Martinez for a while just because it would have made things so much easier, and it would have allowed me to keep Kevin De Bruyne. And at the moment, that clearly that feels okay. We'll see about next. There's still a chance I bring Kevin De Bruyne back just for defensive purposes more than anything else. I mean, his ownership's going to be really high, and I don't really want to go into a double game week with like a 50 or 60% owned player not in my squad, right?
Were you reaching for the panic button when Bruno takes that penalty? Or I want to say of myself that I sat back on my couch and said, "Don't worry, Brandon. All that talk about possibly captaining Bruno, it is not in this moment blowing up in your face. Have some patience. Rashford not only did Rashford get the assist, but he will come good." And he did by the skin of our teeth. Rashford outscored Bruno.
I thought you were going to ask me about panicked. Yeah, well, it's sort of slightly different. It was that I have been through so many missed Mitrovic pens the last few weeks that I have a kind of penalty trauma right now. It's hard for me to watch any of these pens and not assume that something's going to go wrong. It's going to get saved or missed or whatever. It was pretty
pens traumatic stress.
Yeah, exactly. I hate Bruno's run up still. I do not like the staggered step run up. It feels like so many little components of your footwork could go wrong there and screw those up. But anyway, he scores it. And then I was kind of with you. I just assumed that I was like, well, if Rashford is going to pick up an assist 8 minutes into this match, that he's going to get another chance or two to do something. And he was all over the ball. And I think that makes me feel really good about the Leeds match as well. Bruno is an interesting case because, and I guess maybe we're jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but I feel like he was good. But and we'll see. I don't want to make any decision about Bruno until after Wednesday. I really want to see how he plays in that Wednesday match. But he takes the pen. Outside of that, I didn't feel like he was just completely essential fantasy wise. Like, it doesn't seem crazy to me to drop him at the moment for an Arsenal mid or Man City. Going Bruno to Mahrez or whatever, even KDB doesn't seem totally out of bounds to me. So
he has a little bit of like James Ward-Prowse fantasy energy insofar as if Bruno does anything fantasy related, if he connects on an assist or scores a goal, he's in the bonus. And for a player like that can be massive. And I think he's going to have more points than JWP by the end of the season. But have I ever thought James Ward-Prowse was essential? But it just kind of worked out with kind of going back to what I was saying about it being a little bit more linear, how goals are scored by Manchester United. If Rashford is going to continue the way he has been, Bruno will probably be involved. So, or like maybe a good analogy is stringing like a hit combo together on Tekken. And I feel like combining Rashford and Bruno is like a stringing some sort of punching connected move together. I loved the Tekken 3 was my Tekken, and I used to love the guy that was like the Bruce Lee ripoff character. Remember him? He had like all of Bruce Lee's moves. Yes, he was great. What about was that the one with the guy made of logs as well? Or was it like a wood man?
I think you're thinking of Guardians of the Galaxy, Brandon, and that's a character named Groot. Yeah, so
all right.
I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah, are you thinking of Dulcim? Those are just long arms, Brandon. Those aren't.
That's Street Fighter 2. Come on now, we don't want to look like idiots here. We'll mistake certain Premier League players, but never will I mistake a Street Fighter character on this podcast.
I'm just kidding. Of course not. Of course not. Me either. All right. On that note, let's take a break. We'll get back and we're going to talk about Arsenal, Man City, and more. It's not just those two teams, but they really are. When the two best teams in the league play each other, and their fantasy assets have been some of the most important ones, for better or worse, all season long. Mostly for better. We have to give it a lot of time, and that's just why wouldn't we? And also that match is really important now. And I mean, when Arsenal lost to Everton on Saturday, I was like, oh man, like, are we just in gigantic trouble here? But yeah, I mean, now it's Arsenal's 5 clear with a match in hand. So even if Man City win, they've still got, I wouldn't quite say it's in Arsenal's their destiny. Hands. Yeah, it's not exactly. It's the match gave me a little bit of pause. I'm a little well. Let's take a break. We'll get back and we'll talk about Arsenal players and Man City players and lots more.
If you rang in the new year with someone special and 2023 will be a new chapter in your relationship, Indochino is ready to help you look your best on your big day. Indochino gives you everything you need to create a custom suit that's right for you. Shop online by setting up your measurement profile and choosing the fabric and customizations that you want. Prefer an in-person experience? Well, book an appointment at an Indochino showroom and work with an expert style guide to take your measurements and walk you through your customization options. Then just sit back while your suit is made and then it's delivered right to your door. If you're ringing in 2023 with wedding bells ahead, start planning your custom look with Indochino. Go to Indochino.com and use code BLUEWIRE to get 10% off any purchase of $399 or more. That's INDOCHINO.com, promo code BLUEWIRE.
Tonight, I'm taking Giannis Antetokounmpo to have more than 33.5 points and 12 rebounds, Kevin Durant to have more than 28.5 points, and Zach LaVine to have less than 21.5 points on Prize Picks. I love Prize Picks because it's easy. I pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, and I can win up to 25 times my money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just me versus the projections available, and it's fast and easy. So go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code BLUEWIRE1. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code BLUEWIRE1 at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100.
All right, Brian, we're back. Double game week 23 coming up on Saturday. Saturday's actually kind of it's funny because it is sort of a game week classic, which you and I know and love, with one little extra match tacked on. Brandon, got a nice, clean, big Saturday. I think we are going to watch these matches in Manhattan, somewhere, either Smithfield Hall or I'm gonna come to your neck of the woods, Brandon. Now that you've moved. I
moved out of the great borough of Brooklyn, and we're going to meet producer Dave. If anybody's in town, let us know. Yeah.
So I'm thinking either Football Factory or Smithfield Hall. We can talk about this later. But lots of matches on Saturday, February 11th. I'm really looking forward to it. And then we got 2 matches on Sunday, 1 on Monday. So that to me is that's FPL classic to me, Brandon. 8 or I guess 7 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 1 on Monday. Nice and easy. The 1 on Monday is a derby as well too, Liverpool Everton, and there's like the collective ownership is about 3% in that match now. So it's like the rare Liverpool Everton that's like a full on pure watch. And then Wednesday is when Arsenal Man City play for the first time in the league this season. They have now played in the FA Cup a kind of I don't know. It was okay. I don't want to call it a tepid just because it was 1-0, but it wasn't. I didn't like think that was an incredible match. But kind of feeling each other out a little bit. Pep rotated a bunch of players in that game as well.
There was an interesting discussion about the psychology of that result between City and Arsenal, and how it may, in a sense, it favors Arsenal. Like, let us just focus on our league position and get this out of here. And it wasn't like a full strength 11 that Arteta put out. So the next time they go up against City, they will say, well, this is different. We've got a different team out here. But it will surely play in their mind, well, either the last time we did play these guys, we did technically lose, or Arsenal goes out there and says, well, now we really have to win, because the whole plan was kind of like, not to win last time. I don't know. So it's kind of bizarre to be in Arsenal's position, but you would definitely take heart, as you pointed out, that it's not a must win, but if they do win, it will be massive for their league position.
That's so true, and I feel like I still don't feel totally like all our Arsenal supporters. I don't feel hugely. I feel great because I really like this squad. I really like rooting for them. I think even people who aren't Arsenal supporters, I think even yourself included, it's a fun team. The way it's been put together.
Fully agree. Definitely enjoying the whole story of it, and it's different than the Leicester story, right? Where Leicester was just a full-on Cinderella story, and Arsenal is just it's a more sort of sports centric as opposed to small town comes good sort of story.
Yeah. The Leicester thing was crazy. I mean, you had like a fourth division forward who became the best forward in the Premier League, and then you had two players bought for nothing, right? In Mahrez and Conte, who became two of the 10 best players in the league for a half decade. It's just so anyone, as long as you do those three things, Brennan, even you can win the league. It's hold out hope. I don't know who would be the club that would do that. It'd be like Wolves. I feel like Wolves would be if they got like the right Portuguese players at the right time, maybe they could do that someday. All right, so let's run through some of the options that you can consider on these squads now. And in some cases, like in the case of someone like Martinelli, many people already have him, and we can talk later about whether it's worth dropping him for a hit, which I'm strongly considering. I'm sure many others are as well. But let's just talk through the players first, okay? So kick things off, we have Martin Ødegaard and Bukayo Saka. I think the top two fantasy assets on Arsenal. Very similar returns as well. Except Ødegaard is cheaper. He's $7 million. 8 goals, 6 assists, 18 bonus points, a mortal lock to start when healthy. Saka is $1.2 million more expensive at 8.2, but still affordable. And 7 goals, 8 assists, and 9 bonus points. So 9 fewer bonus points is really basically the difference in points between these guys. He also played a little bit more. But I thought that this match today reminded me why I do think long-term that Saka outscores Ødegaard on the season. I think that he'll get more minutes. He's just in the box more, right? I just feel like more chances are going to fall to him. He's on corner kicks. Like there's just kind of all of these different ways that he can. Now, of course, Ødegaard had like a sitter that he blasted 50 feet over the bar, but in general, I brought in Ødegaard, so I'm kind of locked at the moment on my Arsenal players. I've got Martinelli, Ødegaard, and Ben White. Although Martinelli could possibly move. But you right now are in a position where you don't have either one. You don't have Ødegaard or Saka, and you have kind of mapped out a strategy that gets you through game week 25, right? So what is your current thinking with your squad?
Right. So my Arsenal players are Saliba and Martinelli at the moment. The current strategy is revolves around Bruno Fernandes. So and Sam Greenwood up top, who is my non-playing third striker for Leeds. Yep. If I downgrade Fernandes to Ødegaard, then I have enough cash to turn Sam Greenwood into Nketiah. Of course, that gives me 4 Arsenal players, so that won't work. So we turn Bruno Fernandes into Matoma, who, of course, is a Brighton player, and he will blank in game week 25, but that does allow me to have 3 Arsenal players, and Greenwood becomes Nketiah. Then looking ahead to game week 25, I would offload Luke Shaw, and that would get me a full starting 11. However, we've got a wild card here in Bueno, at Wolves, who didn't get a sniff against Liverpool, and Wolves
surprisingly, I thought he played
right. And it's unfortunate when you've got one of those guys that's right on the bubble of the starting lineup. He doesn't play, and the team plays incredibly well against a classically good side of Liverpool. It doesn't make you feel great. But so my that was the plan that I kind of had in place as I was formulating my game week 22 strategy. Of course, now Martinelli becoming, there is that discussion or that anxiety around him of him actually being a worthwhile asset for the double and going forward. If Trossard is going to get more minutes than we had anticipated, as well as De Bruyne. So I'm actually
So we're learning, by the way, the perils of having like a 4-week plan.
It doesn't really work.
One week into your plan, like 4 of the players you're considering, you have grave doubts about.
It's so true. So the other path for me is Bruno Fernandes and Martinelli just become Saka and Ødegaard going into game week 23, and then I figure out what to do with Greenwood at a future date.
You know, I don't hate that. And so you'd have 2 Man City still in De Bruyne.
I'd have 3 because I brought in Akanji with my free transfer for game week 22.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd have
Why
3 and 3.
That?
Yeah.
That seems easy.
It does seem like the better move in my mind.
Well, let's bring Martinelli into the conversation then, Brandon, because he is 6.6 million, 7 goals, 5 assists, but blanks in his last 4. Only 7 bonus points in the season, which was a little lower than I expected. I thought he'd be a little bit higher than that. But he also is one of these guys who like misses a bunch of misses a lot of shots off target and things like that, which are killers in the bonus point system.
Or when he does well, everybody else on the team is doing well, and the center backs might hoover up those BPS or Saka.
He's the kind of guy who excels like when it's like a 1-1 or like when Arsenal's down 1-0 and then they score like to go 1-1 and then they get another goal and it's 2-1. He's the kind of guy who loves getting that 3-1 goal. It's like when they're riding really high, he is always there to add a little bit of safety to the score. It seems like. So I have Martinelli. I only have 1 free transfer. I actually don't have enough money in the bank to go Bruno to go straight back from Bruno to Kevin De Bruyne. I'm also not sure I want to. I think that there's a real question about whether it's worth dropping Bruno ahead of Leeds away, which they'll play. They play Leeds twice in a week, which is very weird. I can't remember that ever happening. I'm sure it has, but like I'm sure it's happened like in the last two seasons, but I'm just forgetting right now. But it just seems very odd to me to play Leeds on Wednesday and then again on. When do they play? And then again on Sunday. So they play them twice in 4 days in the Premier League. I know sometimes it happens like with the FA Cup or whatever, but to play like 2 Premier League ties, I don't know. So we'll see if both teams roll out the same lineups. I mean,
you could play against a Jesse Marsh managed Leeds one day, and the next day a Sam Allardyce managed Leeds.
Yeah, well, that's true. I know Marsh's that Forest match was worrisome. Although they brought in so many new players, I think he's probably going to get a little time to see if he can figure out how to make it all work. But I mean, certainly today's match wasn't very inspiring, and so you think, well, couldn't Bruno do some really great things against Leeds when they play them? And so why am I burning points to drop Bruno ahead of a Leeds match? Yeah. And then they host Leicester at home the next week, the most diabolical defense in the Premier League. So why am I doing this again? So I can target a double game week where Kevin De Bruyne may not even start on Sunday. I mean, he was not rested today. He was rotated. They had not played in a week. Like there was no. It was not like he was suffering from massive fatigue here. He had not been playing well enough to get the start in this match. Now, of course, they didn't play well, and I'd say Alvarez, who was kind of in a spot, was the worst player on the pitch today, or certainly the most anonymous. And so I don't think that he, maybe not the worst, but I felt like he didn't do anything well when he was on the pitch. Yeah, and then Kevin De Bruyne came on and played well.
I agree in this assessment kind of relates to my take on Martinelli as well, and a case to keep Martinelli is the interesting thing about Arteta during the Everton match was every substitution that Arteta made was like extremely like for like, carbon copy. So now maybe you're just bringing in attitude, you're bringing in fresh legs, and Arteta's system is sophisticated enough that you don't necessarily need to, bring in a center back or for a defensive midfielder or something like this. I don't know, but Arsenal didn't look one iota better after Arteta was making these substitutions, and Trossard, even though he had a decent debut substitution for Arsenal, did not improve the team at all. So to a degree, early substitutions are managers just saving players from themselves. Okay, this is not like you're dragging. You're not in good form. leaving you out there is not helping anybody. So I don't know how concerned I am about Martinelli for the start, and the amount of times that Arteta has rotated his squad. It seems like it's only for cup matches that he has. He's been playing virtually the same starting 11 in the league unless injury has dictated that he change it. The issue then with De Bruyne is Pep has just decided to go to war with the world and the
his
pre-match
entire team.
Yeah, with his entire team and the world. So I'm saying it's inclusive of us, Josh.
Yes, that's true. FPL managers included. Yes. Very much
and
so.
Pre-match, Pep was asked if De Bruyne's benching was tactical, and Pep kind of grinned and said, "Oh yes, exactly." Something incredibly like sinister and ominous. And so he wants to play Alvarez, who's a number 9 in some sort of number 10 spot, and he wants to play Rico Lewis as this inverted fullback. And I thought Rico Lewis may have had him and Rodri were abysmal and both at fault for the goal that came to pass for Harry Kane. There are so many problems that Pep needs to iron out with this squad. How is De Bruyne the problem?
I mean, he hasn't played well either. I mean, the problem is no one's.
It's not like that. That coincides with City's entire form as a team. Maybe De Bruyne is so integral that his form. But it's like what we're seeing with the City's Pep squad without De Bruyne is the same, if not worse. Is my point.
Yeah. And how does all this relate to Martinelli? We'll let you know when we find out. I think it's on my mind too. I keep getting drawn to, but we will get to Man City in a second. It's my fault, Brendan. I brought us onto the Kevin De Bruyne thing. But Martinelli is. Here's my feeling about Martinelli. Okay, I think that he will start both matches. I think that he could do something in both matches. I don't think it is essential to drop him. I think it is fine to do it, and he is not in great form, and I think there's at least a small chance, that Trossard maybe starts one of these matches, especially if Martinelli doesn't play well in the Brentford match at home on Saturday, or he comes off even earlier. It seems like Martinelli's substitutions have been happening earlier and earlier the last few weeks, so that is a little risk. I mean, I think the minutes of all the kind of minutes. I mean, Ødegaard got subbed off a little early today, which maybe is good for the next two matches. Keep him fresh for those. Although it was weird that he subbed off when they were down 1-0. It felt like he would have been useful to have him on there still, but maybe he was just having an off day. So I think it's fine to drop Martinelli. I may do it myself. But I wouldn't, and I guess that's how it tied in with Kevin De Bruyne. I wouldn't necessarily drop Martinelli because it helped me fund a Kevin De Bruyne move, right? Like if this is like the way that I could turn Bruno into Kevin De Bruyne, to me, dropping Bruno and Martinelli to have Kevin De Bruyne does not feel worthwhile. Now, doing it the way you're suggesting, which is to fund Saka and Ødegaard, two players who are terrific and affordable and are, top of the midfield point charts and playing game week 25, and you could probably
do it for free.
And yeah, exactly. And do it for free and just probably have them like all season. That seems totally fair and reasonable to me. But I think it's when you think about dropping Martinelli for Man City options that I'm maybe less enthused. So that brings us to Nketiah, who you're talking about now. I didn't think he had an amazing match in Everton. Nobody really did. I mean, credit to Sean Dyche, who really should have been poached earlier. Right? Why did it take him so long? Is it just because he has this like unearned reputation as being the next Sam Allardyce or something like that?
I'm sure he was approached. I think he was probably waiting for the right opportunity.
Maybe so. That's true. That's true.
Because he's in a precarious position as a management figure because he's so associated with Burnley, and people kind of have this cognitive dissonance. Like, well, he got Burnley promoted. He did get relegated with them. Then he got him promoted again. And then he got fired when they were about to get, and it's Burnley. It would sound like that Arsenal fan team. You got Burnley. But I don't. So some people might not know what box to put him in. So this Everton job just seemed ready-made for him to come.
Perfect.
It's so perfect. And so congratulations to everyone involved.
can't be anything better for any of these managers in the Premier League to follow Frank Lampard, right? Just like chaos agent. No
Thomas
plan,
Tuchel just will go. Maybe Everton will win the Champions League now.
I don't know how Lampard stayed there so long. So Nketiah, you have 6.7 million, 4 goals, 0 assists. 5 bonus points since the restart, right? So all of his goals have been since the restart, unsurprisingly, perhaps because he's obviously been Gabriel Jesus' backup. Jesus, feet on the ground, back in training, not fully back, right? He's but no threat, in my opinion, to start either match in this double. No threat at all. But maybe a threat by like game week 25. Chance he could be ready by then. At the very least, if you bring in Nketiah, if you're not planning to wildcard anytime soon, you're kind of banking a transfer out for him later, which is slightly annoying, and it's fine. Like it's okay to have to do that, but I don't necessarily, he's not his long-term viability has to be at least in question, because Gabriel Jesus today. I thought Saturday's match was the first time when it really felt like Arsenal needed Gabriel Jesus out there. They needed somebody who. They needed like another creative player in the final third, and that's what Jesus has not necessarily excelled at scoring goals for Arsenal, but he's excelled, I think, at being really direct and linking up the play really well. And it's like if Arsenal start a move on the left with Martinelli, if it funneled its way into Gabriel Jesus, you felt like it was going to be a goal every time. There was just something about how the choices he would make with the ball, in the final third. So. So objectively, I like Nketiah. He's cheap and he will start both these matches and probably scores a goal. But I have I had enough doubts that I didn't bring him in myself with my 2 transfers this week. So I don't know. What do you think? I know you're talking about bringing him in.
Yeah, I think double game week goggles and. On top of the brace that Nketiah scored a couple of game weeks ago, you think, well, just like, why would I not have this guy? It seems pretty simple. Get the guy that's farthest forward. The Jesus thing, on top of the midfield in fantasy, continue to just pour on the points, where Matoma has just really outshined an option like Nketiah, where this guy is going to be the talisman for the rest of the season for Brighton. So I'm ready to sacrifice another midfielder like Andreas Pereira to get in somebody like Matoma and continue to play a 3-5-2 and not worry about that third striker, that when Nketiah is not on song, then it's just like continuing this carousel of, is it going to be Tony? Is it going to be Mitro? Is it going to be, I don't know, name another striker. Like Bamford looked ready, coming back, but like his first touch was really quite miserable.
I know you're excited about Weghorst, so you can open forum right now, Brendan. You can talk as long as you want about Weghorst. Go.
Okay, should we kick it to commercial first, and then we can come back and I can just do a 30-minute chunk on Veggie?
Weghorst, he's like better recently.
That's a good point. I was just going to mention that Martial injured again is great for you've 2 Weghorst owners out there. But Ollie Watkins and Villa. Villa is just an interesting. Aston Villa is daring fantasy managers to talk about them because they have cheap players who are intriguing. On our Patreon pod, we were kind of dipping our toe into the Mings and Moreno waters because they don't blank. It's a cheap.
Then they conceded 4 at home. Then Moreno didn't start. Moreno didn't start. They conceded 4 at home to Leicester. So that conversation ended quickly.
Yeah, so it's a big trap team. So then you get to Ollie Watkins, and you're like, well, he's the guy that's going to do something if they do it. But if it's not Ollie Watkins, then the counter argument is Ivan Toney, because Ivan Toney plays for a really consistent team in Brentford.
Yep.
However, Brentford, counterpoint, scored 3 goals this weekend, and Toney did not score, nor did he assist any of them.
He was involved. He was kind of involved. First goal. Yeah.
Not saying that he's suddenly a bad player. Of course not. He's still like the dude at that team, but it's going to be really frustrating for a fantasy manager.
Oh yeah, I felt like I dodged a little bit of a bullet, honestly, with the with Tony not getting any returns today. Southampton are going down, aren't they? There's really no. They're like going to be the first. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, they've been in the league for a long time, but there's nothing. And I don't say this with any kind of malice because I like Southampton and I think it's fun to have teams kind of geographically all across England. That's just sort of like, I think there's something fun about that. And so losing a South Coast team isn't
Bournemouth are going down too, my friend. So that's 2 shots to the South Coast this
right.
season.
That's a tough, exactly. Yeah. We got to get Reading up or something, but it's just a tough, Reading down there. I'm stretching my own,
Reading is a London based team. You're thinking of like Pompey. Pompey would be.
Yeah, that's true. I am thinking of Pompey. That was a test, Brandon, and you passed it. A little geography test I threw in there for you.
There was an interview that Nathan Jones, Southampton manager, gave this joker who they brought up from Luton Town, gave post match where this guy is either insane or a stone cold moron, because he was going on about how, I've made too many compromises with this Southampton team. That's not my team out there, and I'm going to stop compromising. Because when I interviewed for this job, I showed them that I statistically am the number 1 manager in Europe for aggressive play. I can show it. I've got the stats. I'm number 1 for aggressive play, also number 1 for clean sheets. He just started speaking like stream of consciousness about how he was. It was like very Trumpian.
He'd gone to his own transfer market page before this interview.
I guess, but I don't know who's in charge at Southampton, but they've just blown up that club in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think it may. Sometimes a little reset can, as long as you can come right back up. I mean, Fulham have proven you can do this, right?
Come back. You can embarrass yourself and reset that in a couple of seasons.
I thought they looked pretty good in that Chelsea match too.
So amazing, Kenny Tete, what a ledge.
Yeah, and Mitchell almost scored. That would have been an amazing goal if he had scored that. Kepa, very casual, leaning at full lean to get that, 7 feet in the air. It's a perfectly placed ball, that midfield attempt. Get him off the line.
It would have been wild scenes, and for Kepa to get what? Kepa is just like, let's talk about Kepa.
Legend. Yeah, incredible. He really. I had a moment where I was like, maybe with my free transfer this week, I'll turn Ward into Ederson, for the double. And after this, I'm like, why? I'm just going to keep starting Kepa. Well, I don't know. They play away to West Ham. It's not that difficult of a fixture. I mean, West Ham have a little new manager bump themselves right now, but it's like just. Yeah, I mean, 10, 9, and 10 in the last 3. I'm not going to bench him or drop him or anything like that.
No, don't mess around with your goalkeepers. I think
that's a good rule of thumb.
I think it was Dave who told me going for Ederson over Kepa coming out of the World Cup is a 30-point fantasy point swing.
Wow. That's massive. That's the difference between winning. I mean, that's tough. I'm surprised at that extreme. We'll talk more about Ederson in a second, because I was a little surprised by the clean sheet numbers. But just to wrap things up with Arsenal, let's talk about the defense for a second. You have, I would say, of all the defenders that you would consider, White, Saliba, Zinchenko, Gabriel, Ramsdale, different category, obviously. I would think that Gabriel would be the pick. They're all roughly the same price at this point. White is a little bit cheaper. I think he's 4.7. But I think that Gabriel offers the most goal threat of any of those defenders. None of them are really involved in assists, attacking returns. Because of the Arsenal setup, it's really everything kind of does ultimately end, with Martinelli or Saka, or it gets funneled back into the middle where Xhaka or Ødegaard kind of, are involved in actually getting the ball into the box. But I think that Gabriel is the play. He almost got a pen today. Yesterday had a little pen shout. But 2 goals, 9 clean sheets, 9 bonus points. I think Zinchenko is a little underrated, just because he missed 7 starts with injury, and so he's fallen off the radar a little bit.
I think he's very underrated. I think he's very underrated, and I think Zinchenko I would take over Gabriel. Though Gabriel, I think, is a good pick. But Yeah, Zinchenko has only managed one fantasy assist this season, but I think he is quite integral and involved in the attack, and it's sort of a promise of future returns that I'm seeing from him. So if you had the budget to get up to 5.1 for Zinchenko, I would be getting him over these other Arsenal defenders.
Yeah, I think they're both fine. There's some part of me that just maybe it's just because of that Zinchenko injury, and it's like I have this idea in my head now that he's injury prone or something. But I think they're both fine. You and I both have White and Saliba, so we don't even have those defenders.
I don't have. No, I have. Oh yes, you have White. I have Saliba. Gotcha.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, I have White. You have Saliba. I think they're both fine. I think they offer the least. I mean, Saliba had those 2 goals at the start of the season, but I think they were historically he hasn't offered a ton of goal threat. And I think just kind of if we can use the eye test at all, Brandon, it does feel like Gabriel's a lot more involved on those corner kicks, a lot more likely to score.
He's bigger.
He's bigger. He's just bigger. And I think that in White, I'm starting to actually get a little bit worried about the threat of Tomiyasu as well. I don't think White's put in some really incredible performances of late, and I don't think that Arteta's going to mess with something that's worked so well this season. And so I think that White should be fine, but just a little bit of doubt there. And I'm actually a little surprised that he doesn't do any kind of runs in the box. There was one moment today where somebody played a through ball to the box, and White didn't get there, and I was like, you were so slow. It just felt like, how did you not get to that ball? And I was like, he's like the slowest fullback in the Premier League. This guy, just everything. I mean, it's his whole style, right? Is that he reads the game well. It's like he's like the Virgil van Dijk of fullbacks, right? It's all just like positioning and stuff. But it isn't necessarily great for fantasy. And then Ramsdale is fine, under 5 million. Great if you have him for the double already. Great. I wouldn't necessarily bring him in, and certainly not worth moving Kepa to.
Yeah, and
move on to Man. Oh, go ahead.
Well, just considering defensive assets, they're playing Man City. Well, God, I don't know. I don't want to get into this predicting results. The fixtures for both Arsenal and City favor attack over defense. Basically,
I agree. No, I agree, especially because we're not getting like an Andy Robertson in here, right? Like Trent Alexander-Arnold's not walking through that door, Brandon. Sorry to tell you that. Sorry to disabuse you of that notion. All right, let's move on
I had to hear it. I didn't want it to be you, but somebody had to tell me that.
somebody had to disabuse you. Man City, they have Villa at home and Arsenal away. Haaland, I mentioned this at the start of the pod. I was kind of... this is just okay. The idea that the FPL game was broken because of Haaland, I think, has been somewhat upended. I'm not saying that he's been found out or whatever. He had a hat trick 2 weeks ago. He is a terrific player.
This is a Josh Landon disabusing notions podcast. I like this.
It is. I know it is. Yeah. The afternoon pods, I'm in a different mood for these. And so he has been obviously incredible this season, a must-own in fantasy. But he has blanked 3 times in his last 5 matches. And as Man City's form has dipped a little bit, as we get into the Champions League a little bit, I think that there is an opportunity here for people to... I think what we'll start to see are just... And it won't happen right away. It'll happen slowly. But if this, let's say blanks again in the Arsenal match. We're all going to captain him this week. I would expect. I'm certainly going to. I'm sure you will too.
Yes.
But I think that there is at least... opportunities now when Man City play some of the more difficult matches for us to go with and double game weeks are their own thing, right? But just putting those aside, just regular game weeks, that when Man City have a hard match, we can at least consider the possibility of going with somebody else, right? We have Harry Kane, who is basically would be this year's Haaland if there were no Haaland. He's only 30 points off him. He's been incredible. He doesn't do the 17 pointers, the 20 pointers, but his floor is the highest of any player, right? You put him out there and you're I'm going to get at least 6 points from him in practically every match. This season. And so there's really something to be said for that. And so, looking ahead, I'm not sure. Game week 26, for example, Man City played Newcastle. That could be Newcastle's defense has been absolutely terrific this season. Spurs go to Wolves, not great, but Arsenal hosts Bournemouth, and 26, right? So you could, if Saka or somebody, Ødegaard, if they continue on their trajectory to play well over the next few weeks, you could, I think, really make a case for going with an Ødegaard type player over Haaland, even in a home match, versus Newcastle. So I like that. I think that's really good for the game that we have this debate back a little bit. It's not totally resolved. In most weeks you should still be captaining Erling Haaland, but I think that, I don't know. I mean, what do you think about just how he's played recently? It does feel like he's more isolated. It feels like he never touches the ball anymore.
Yeah, it makes you understand, if the theme this week is seeking to understand Pep Guardiola, it makes you understand why he shies away from more traditional number 9s, because he lacks the ability to just drop a little deeper, get more involved. It's interesting to see him and Harry Kane on the same pitch, where Kane very effortlessly, it seemed. I mean, you can actually see the effort he puts out, but he'll just go in for a tackle down in the 18-yard box, and not on a set piece. He's moving all around the pitch, and with this understanding of where the ball is. What did they say in basketball? Ball, space, man is what they always drill into you. Kane is always thinking ball, space, man, ball, space, man. And Haaland is just kind of like, I'm just going to stand on the shoulder of the last defender and wait for this all to happen. And I mean, it's working. It's working to a degree. It really is the combination of the Man City double in game week 20, where a lot of people went in for the triple captaincy, and then it kind of gave us the confidence to go triple captain Rashford in game week 22, both partly because of Rashford's incredible form, but also just realizing, we might not necessarily have the perfect. It may need to be a perfect opportunity to try and extract points from Haaland the way we're used to. Right.
10 weeks ago, I wouldn't have dreamed that I would have gone with a non-Haaland option for a triple captain, right? That would have been unthinkable given what he was doing at the start of the season. And now it's at least, partially because the team form is worse. And I think that, I don't know if I've said this in the pod before, but something I've been thinking about recently, which is that his brilliance the first half of the season has kind of disguised a club that's very much in transition right now. A club that has a lot of players that have been there for a very, very long time. And then a bunch of, many of them are young. I mean, even Grealish is pretty young, but you have Grealish, you have Haaland, Alvarez, Lewis.
Put Rico Lewis into that mess.
Yeah,
it's not too dissimilar from what's going on at Liverpool, right? You have a lot of veterans who just should have been sunset properly, and then young players who aren't up to speed with the system.
And Darwin has been no Haaland. I'm sorry to say. No. And also they've had a ton of injuries at Liverpool too. But I think so I think that it is kind of, the Foden thing makes less sense to me, because if you are in this period of transition, it's not clear to me why Foden couldn't get any minutes even when healthy. I know he's injured right now, but that one makes less sense to me, because if you're going to do this kind of like transition, is he gone? Like, if you're Foden and this continues all season, you probably want to look for another club in the summer, right? I mean, it's
time for a new job, man.
I don't know. It's weird. So anyway,
see if they're hiring somewhere.
Because Foden would be, we're not talking about Raheem Sterling here, where it's kind of like he's at the end of his career, right? Foden is what, like 21 years old? I mean,
he's entering the prime. And if he is going to continue to just be treated like a widget by some head case manager, that's bad for him.
I know, they just have never been able to figure out how to play Grealish and Foden together, which seems surprising to me. Like, it feels like at some point, I thought one of the two of them would play more centrally, and it seems like it's two players for one spot. And I don't know, but anyway, and Pep's won like 9 titles, so I mean, clearly but it does feel like he's in a weird spot right now. It does feel like maybe he is at the end of his Man City cycle or something, because this weird thing where he's just alienating all of his players and just driving his best players away. I don't know. It's just strange to me.
Is he bored?
I mean, this is
like his players might be, or
I don't know. He's probably trying to get them out of some kind of funk, or he senses complacency or whatever. But I don't know. It feels like he's rarely putting out his best squad right now, and it's like he's doing it to like prove a point. But they keep losing matches, so it's like
point proven.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that brings us to KDB, who even today I thought he had a couple of moments, but then he gets this ball falls to him outside the box late in that match. It's kind of spot where KDB leathers it. I feel like 50% of the time that thing is a goal, and it just he hasn't scored since game week 14. Misses today. Has that big free kick late after you get the red card on Romero, and you're like, straight here we go, like straight into the wall. And it was just like, he looked good, I suppose, but just not. There's something about that. He's not doing that just burst down the right-hand side, the kind of vintage KDB move. Burst down the right-hand side, playing a perfect ball to player X in the box. And just that was what he used to, excel at. And so it feels like that's kind of missing from his game right now. And,
I found that he was overcooking a lot of his crosses. He wasn't cutting the defense apart when he seemed to try to cross into the box. I don't know if he was intentionally trying to get Grealish at the far post, but and I thought he was sloppier than usual, though he's not been playing regularly coming out of the World Cup, and the World Cup was not fun for Belgians, so maybe he's just lost his touch a little bit. But you've got to play these guys if you want them to get back in form. Yeah, play them through thick and thin. If De Bruyne, I don't know. You got to win the Champions League here, Manchester City, and you're not going to do it with Rico Lewis. And maybe you will.
They have to. They have to do it with a 35-year-old fullback and a 19-year-old fullback, or play a center back in that spot. It's like Ake. This is like, I don't know why we're like really going in on one of the best teams in Europe, but like it's just like Ake offers like nothing going forward. Like there's no. It's like they're playing with like 3 or 4 center. I mean, you got Lewis in the middle. It's like they have no fullbacks. It's a weird thing, and so it's just all on Mahrez and Grealish right now. I thought Grealish was actually pretty good today. I mean, had some moments, and as he often does, he kind of cuts a frustrated figure in the end. But I thought he looked pretty good at times, and so I mean, KDB, I don't know. I mean, I really have to decide whether, I said this at the start of the pod, whether it's just there's an element of safety to bring him in. If there was a way for me to go from Martinelli to Mahrez without burning points, I probably would just do that and maybe just leave that. I don't know. Then I'd have 4 players to double. That seems a little low. But anyway, I can't quite decide what to do with Kevin De Bruyne. I don't really want to bring him back in is where I am. And the one player I could bring in without having to burn points would be Jack Grealish, who's started 5 of the last 7. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists since the restart. If Foden is still out or at risk of playing, he probably starts both these matches. No one is talking about Jack Grealish for understandable reasons. But would you give any thought to Grealish? Maybe not for you personally, but what do you think about him as an option?
Well, I guess I don't hate it because just given the output, 1 goal and 3 assists, it's not horrible for a player at that price. And I guess Pep was saying that Foden was sick and not feeling well ahead of this match. But given that he wasn't even in the squad, the previous league match, there's an issue going on there. Who knows? I feel like Grealish is probably relatively safe. I don't know. It just feels like going in on a double game week just to have some fun or to take a punt. It doesn't feel like a wise long-term move because how much longer are you going to want to keep Grealish in your squad if you do that?
No, that's a good point. That's a good. I mean, I kind of feel the same way about Mahrez, just because Mahrez has started 6 of the last 7 matches, 7.7 million, 4 goals, 5 assists in the season. But of his 4 goals and 5 assists in the season, 3 goals and 4 assists have come since the restart. So basically, everything he's done, he's kind of like the Nketiah of Man City. Really consistently getting starts, playing well. Didn't play especially well today, and then got subbed in the 59th minute. So. Man, just makes things very complicated, I think, when it comes to evaluating the midfielders for Man City. And I think if it's, okay, let me put it this way. If Man City just had Villa at home, and that was the only fixture they had this week, you would not consider any of these players, right? If I was just like, Man City have Villa at home, do you want to drop Bruno for a hit? to have KDB or Mahrez.
No,
and I'd be no chance.
It's so true. If it were a single game week, we would just spend 10 minutes talking about what is going on with Man City and why are they not good at the moment, and we would move on and talk about how happy and excited we are to have Manchester United players. The fact that it's a double, we're kind of trying to bend this argument into, well, here's a case of why you would want them.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. I currently have De Bruyne for the other side of that coin, and I'm not planning to get rid of him unless something horrible happens in the next week. So, but I'm not feeling like he's a huge differential for me. It's just kind of like a cool.
It's not bad. Yeah, I think that for me, I'm still going to bring in. I only have one Man City player at the moment because I did decide to go KDB to.
Can I guess
Bruno.
who it is?
Yeah, you can guess. Yeah, I'm sure you'll never get there. But it's I do have Erling Brot Haaland.
Ruben Diaz.
Brute. Yeah, Ruben Diaz. That poor guy. What did he ever do? He's the best defender in the Premier League a year ago.
None of these players asked for this, Josh.
So weird. But just to close on the midfielders for a second, Bernardo, Rodri, Gundogan, Alvarez. I think you have to avoid them all. It's not clear which there's maybe one start each, maybe none for Alvarez. Hard to say. And then that brings me to the defenders, though. And
Alvarez, who started today.
Yeah, but I just don't think he played well. I think that Kevin De Bruyne, if he's going to kind of keep playing him in this De Bruyne spot, I think De Bruyne probably will start the next 2. Certainly De Bruyne will start the Arsenal match. Probably will start the Villa match now that he was rotated, and then came on and played well. So at that point, Alvarez either he plays over Kevin De Bruyne, which I think is unlikely, or he plays over Mahrez, which I suppose he could play over Haaland. If Pep decides to rest Haaland ahead of the Arsenal match, which the only reason I think that could possibly happen would be because the Arsenal match is on Wednesday. Arsenal Man City is on Wednesday, next week Wednesday that is, and Arsenal play on Saturday, and Man City play on Sunday. So Arsenal have a full extra day, which isn't much, but 4 days versus 3 days is pretty significant, I feel like, in terms of rest and recovery. So I think that we could maybe see a slightly funkier Man City squad for game week. So that's why I think all 4 of these guys, I would just avoid them. I just don't trust any of them just to start enough. Gotcha. And then that brings us to the defenders. You have Ake and Akanji. Ake is 5 million. Akanji is 5.1. Probably the safest options available. My transfer this week, I will be targeting one of these 2 players almost certainly. And the reason for that is, and I'm leaning towards Akanji actually, because with Stones out, I think that Akanji is probably fairly safe to start both of these matches. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I just feel like if I don't trust the midfield, then I still don't want to have only one Man City player for the double, and I still have Cancelo as the 7 million option, who is just he's literally
might come
not
back
in the Premier League anymore. Yeah, he's not in the Premier League any longer. So I need he might come back next year. So I might as well solve this problem. And Man City playing Game Week 25, and they have some reasonably good defensive fixtures coming up. So I think they're both fun. They don't really offer any kind of attacking threat at all. Even Ake. This idea that Ake, because he's playing as a fullback, not even today. Today he played as a center back. So it's like, who even knows, right? But the idea that either one of them is going to get you attacking returns, I think is you'll be very lucky. It's like the way anybody can get attacking returns over 38 weeks. But I don't see it as I don't see it as anything you should bank on. But I think there's a chance that Arsenal Man City is a 0-0. I think that there's a possibility that it just is a super cagey match. And I think that there's a good chance they keep a clean sheet at home to Villa. So I think it's fine to bring in one of their defenders. It's too bad that there isn't a fun one to bring in. None of them really get me excited. I mean, you have Lewis. He's only 3.9 million. He's just too risky for my taste. I just don't trust him enough. He could start both those matches. I don't know, but it's not for me. How do you feel about Lewis? Like, is he a player you would consider yourself?
If you're looking at your transfer for the double, and you can only afford somebody who's sub 5 million, I would definitely bring in Rico Lewis. I think.
Okay.
I don't have bigger concerns about him starting. As you've noted, there are no fullbacks at Manchester City at the moment. So
yeah.
And I think Pep's kind of taken Lewis on as a project, like a personal project of some kind. And he is also then, going back to the point I was making about Grealish, if for whatever reason it doesn't work out with Rico Lewis, that's an easy player to slot on your bench at 4 million. He's very cheap. I'm going to need somebody to replace Bueno at some point, I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel like there's a huge risk, even if it doesn't work for the double with Rico Lewis. But that's why these are all the reasons why I got Akanji this past week, is because he is the one that's seemingly most secure of starts. And
which means he won't be starting in that Villa match.
Yeah, right? Diaz, Laporte,
like 0%.
They're all coming in. I think you're right.
All right. Well, that brings us to and then Ederson. Again, it's like, if you don't have Kepa, just bring him in, right? I don't know. It doesn't. You're 8 clean sheets, only 2 in 7 matches since the restart. Watching them play Spurs today, it was hard to feel like this absolutely chaotic back line is going to be keeping a lot of clean sheets moving forward. I mean, maybe this undermines what I just said about the Man City defense. I mean, it does undermine what I just said about Man City defense, but it just feels like I don't want to be doubled up defensively, that's for sure. And maybe having one just as like a kind of like a speculative investment or whatever, yes. I think is fine. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't be doubled up or be excited about a double up for these two matches.
I think I like the defenders better for that reason, because it's easier looking at the FPL game over the next couple of months. There will be formed defenders and defenders who have doubles or any sort of reason where you'd want to get in a different defender. Goalkeepers, the fewer transfers you can spend on goalkeepers, all the better. We struck gold with Kepa, getting these massive hauls coming back from the World Cup. So I won't mess with greatness. But Ederson doesn't offer enough that you would spend a transfer on him and then look to have him down the line, because you wouldn't really want him long term, as you wouldn't want any of these City defenders long term.
The only case where an Ederson move makes sense maybe is if you had like David De Gea, and De Gea doesn't play in 25. So maybe that would be a move that would make sense. There are some defenders out there with him. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Again, it's situational.
That's a good point. But if you had Danny Ward to sub in, then you could live without
a 0-pointer. Yeah, and Danny Ward to get no saves.
I was head to head against somebody who had Castagna this week, and I was like, "Oh, did Castagna not play?" Just like absolute, decimation of Leicester defensive assets.
All right. Well, this has been this is probably the longest you and I have ever talked about two teams before. So let's take a quick break. We have a couple of questions. We're going to treat these lightning round style. Okay, Brandon? So each question is going to get a 30-second response. But let's take a quick break first, and then we'll get into the questions. All right, Brandon, we're back. We've got a couple of questions. I think we've covered a lot of these, and so I'm gonna try to jump around and and just target some things that maybe we didn't get into in our lengthy Arsenal Man City discussion, which was occasionally FPL centric. It dipped into the FPL world from time to time. Lucas E says, if you missed the triple cap for Rashford, is triple captain Haaland for the double game week a good time to use it, or should we wait for a better opportunity?
I think we wait. I mean, according to Sir Ben Crellin on Twitter, Game Week 29 is shaping up to be an insane blockbuster based on EFL Cup results. So I would hold it because I just don't think the form that City is exhibiting is good enough, and there will be definitely another opportunity.
I think so too. I just don't think Man City's team form is good enough at the moment to it could work out, but there's also lots of other opportunities where it feels like it could be more of a sure thing, like Rashford felt this week, where there's a moment, I'm sure you felt the same way, where you're like, should I just hold this? Like, like maybe fun to have it later on. And then at some point it was like, he's in great form. Man United are good. They're playing two teams at home. Just do it, and you're almost surely not gonna regret it because his floor was so high. Yeah. And so wait for one of those opportunities.
And that's the lesson, right? We ultimately just went for Rashford because we felt some level of conviction, and if you're really asking and you're just kind of not sure, that means you don't have that conviction that some would have had with Haaland in game week 20 or Rashford this week. So that means you hold.
That's true. That's a good way to think about it. If it doesn't, if it doesn't feel right, don't. It's like true of transfers as well. If you just don't feel good about it, it's probably like your instincts are telling you something that's likely true. Stephen Curtis said, thoughts on preparing for the blank game week 25. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So they'll need to take a hit in 25 to field 11, but want players to transfer out in preparation back for 26. I'm not dealing with 26 right now. That 26 will come with the players that I have, plus whatever transfer I make. I have one thought that to add on to what we talked about earlier, Brandon, which is that if you're on the fence about a transfer for game week 23, the one right in front of us, if the minus, and you're like, I don't know if I want to take a -4 or not. If the -4 takes out a player who doesn't play in game week 25, then you could almost just see that as like a -4 that you're pulling forward in order to bring in a double game week player or whatever. And so I think that this is where sadly the Mitoma is so, because he's been so good recently, and but he doesn't really make sense for the next couple of weeks, unfortunately, because he doesn't play in 25.
Possibly. I do think that his form is so good and the fixtures are so good for Brighton. Brighton's fixtures are in 23, Palace followed by Fulham, then it's the blank. There's a potential double game week in 26 or 27. Otherwise, they play West Ham and Leeds. I think Mitoma, though, is the exception to the rule, where if you're sort of formulating a way to get Mitoma in, get him now while he is in form, and you can get those points. Yeah. And the way I'm then thinking of planning for game week 25 is maybe there is one exception like Mitoma that I would feel comfortable only fielding 10 players that game week because I'm trying to capitalize.
Don't you think he's, instead of being the exception to the rule, don't you think he's the exception that proves the rule, Brandon? No, I'm just kidding. I just want to say that. That's no. I think you might be right there. All right, let's move on here. Brian said, "Is hopping from Martinelli to Saka or Ødegaard a no-brainer? Which one would you pick?" No, I don't think it's a no-brainer. I think that it's something you could consider. I think that for a minus, it depends on whether it's on a free. I love it. On a -4, I'm feeling a little less reluctant because Brentford are pretty good too. Like they're not like this is not like having Forest at home for one of these two matches. I mean, Brentford are they're not as strong, away. They're really good at home and not quite as strong away. So I think that I certainly hope and expect Arsenal to win that match, but I don't know. I think that it's I don't think it's a no-brainer. I think that it's a gamble for sure, and whether it's worthwhile or not, I am leaning towards not making that gamble myself at the moment.
Josh, we are in agreement. I'm only doing it on a free transfer, otherwise keeping.
Yeah. I mean, 4 points, I don't know. I mean, some people are just more hit heavy than you and I are, I think. And just in general, I just don't like sacrificing points. And especially if I'm dropping starters. It's just not some, I mean, he came off in the 59th minute this week. It was really annoying, but that is not happening every week. And so, and you'll have, hey, if he comes to the 59th minute twice, Brandon, that's 2 points right there. That's 1 point doubled. So there you go.
That's 2 points more than you had
stuff.
before. That just to simply and elegantly answer Brian's question, Saka over Ødegaard if you have the money.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that it's I just think you're going to get more from him long term. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the pod. And so let's see. David C says it's fairly early days, but considering the cheap prices, should we take another look at a revamped Everton squad, or is it too soon to go anywhere with the Everton squad?
Well, I suppose it's too soon. I guess my other issue would be, who are you dropping for Everton players? I'm just like, I'm having trouble fitting all the guys that I already want into my squad. So I'm happy for Everton, but I don't rate them any more highly than any of the other people who are already bubbling up in fantasy.
Maybe like a Shaw to Tarkowski move. 25 could maybe make sense. I mean, they have a really nice run from, I mean, or even, I don't know, 20, let's see. Yeah, I mean, Man United play Leicester at home, so it wouldn't be 24. But, yeah, I mean, it's Villa, Forest, Brentford are the 25, 26, 27 fixtures. So I think a lot of people are going to find themselves a little caught short when game week 25 rolls around and not quite know what to do. And I think that I would only look at their defenders. I'm with you. I don't see anything. Although Calvert-Lewin did look okay, I thought that he played okay. I just wouldn't trust any of their attackers, but defensively, it seems like he's already kind of righted the ship there. Fair. So I would feel okay about picking an Everton defender. We'll talk more about them next week, though. I think it's just the Everton thing. Also, they play Liverpool in 23, so it's an easy kind of 1 week punt. Let's see how they look when they play away to Liverpool, at Anfield, and if they look really good, then yeah, they're a major theme of next week's podcast. All right, two last questions. Taylor Ferguson says, is Bruno to Arsenal and Arsenal mid an easy-ish decision?
I to a degree, I think so. Well,
I don't think it is.
I suppose he is the most obvious guy to move to an Arsenal mid if you need money, if you need 1 to 2 million to do another move that you need/want to do. I'm fine, because I do think Rashford is the quote unquote cover for the Manchester United attack at the moment. Now they kind of changed for me this week. I was feeling all very proud of myself going in with both Bruno and De Bruyne into game week 22. And now certain plans where I had to get rid of Bruno for cash. Why not get rid of De Bruyne for the cash? So I don't know. United's form looks very sustainable, I think, is the way to look at that.
Yeah, and the thing about Man City too is that it's really, I mean, their 24 and 25 fixtures are like as good as it gets. They're almost too good is part of the problem. They play Forest and Bournemouth in 24 and 25, and that will be wrapped around the start. Well, it'll be 3 days after. The first one will be 3 days after they play Arsenal, and then they start their Champions League the next week, and then they play away to Bournemouth the next week, and so. I don't know. I mean, it's not like he's going to field like a completely second tier squad, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some pretty significant rotation, one if not both those matches.
Wait, Forest and Bournemouth. I'm looking at the United fixtures, and in 24.
Man City. I'm talking about Man City. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I want them all. I want to have all the players.
Yeah, I might confuse. Maybe I got confused. I don't know. Man United, Arsenal, Man City. They're everyone's mind right now. We all have like nine of my 11 players are going to be those guys. So I don't think it's easy though. I think that's for sure. And final question is T-Boy. He says, is it worth a -4, -8 to bring in 2 City assets, or is that too risky? think we have resolved that one, right?
We have. It is not worth it, T-Boy.
Sorry, T-Boy. All right, that's your
famous
pod.
risk taker. T-Boy has been rebuffed.
Sorry, T-Boy. I hope that pod was fun and interesting, and we're gonna go now. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, and you can get access to that extra podcast each week. We'll certainly be doing another one on Thursday this week, and you can talk to us on our Discord and get T-shirts and all kinds of other Patreon goodies. So, Brandon, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Yes, we love you. Thank you, producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, the Big Gaffer, Bobbas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wigner Lodahl, Nick Wright, Lazarus Janos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Rich Evans, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Lee Hickman, Volker Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, James Conroy, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Paul Herzig, Heath Cram, Roberto Morals, Thomas Tislov, and Noah and Louise. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. youtube.com/@alwayscheating, right, where now audio versions of our podcast are available. Follow us on... Yes, go ahead. Do you have a YouTube question?
I was going to say my plea was heard. We picked up a number of new YouTube subscribers this week, so I want to get a respectable follower number on there, Brandon.
I was fiddling around with the YouTube live connectivity, so congratulations to our friend Roar, who watched a 30-second long YouTube live of me seeing if it worked or not. Which I said nothing.
Good.
So.
Oh, we should use that soon.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so watch this space, we will say. All this information and more is at your fingertips at alwayscheating.com. Joshua, let's go Marcus Rashford. Bring it home, baby.
Go. That's right. All right, thanks, everybody. Bye.
Privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
The pandemic has been hard on all our kids. New studies show more than 1 in 3 children who started school in the pandemic now need intensive reading help. That's right. Millions of kids in kindergarten through 3rd grade in the United States cannot read at grade level. Here's the good news. Your child can be reading in just 30 days, guaranteed, with Hooked on Phonics. Even if your child has been struggling, Hooked on Phonics will teach your child to read in just 30 days, guaranteed. And right now, you can get started for just $1. Text the word GRADE to 323232 right now. Hooked on Phonics is highly effective and incredibly fun. And everything can be done right from home and in less than 20 minutes a day. For more than 30 years, Hooked on Phonics has been the proven learn-to-read program that kids love to use. Text GRADE to 323232 and teach your child to read in just 30 days, guaranteed. Text GRADE to 323232 right now and get started for just $1. Text GRADE to 323232 now. Text GRADE to 323232.